If a woman's personal truth and her right to share it and say it is the highest ideal in a relationship, that is a form of idolatry. Yeah. 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 The more I think about it, the more it kind of becomes more and more clear to me. I mean, we're going to bring on a couple more call-in guests to kind of see their feedback and see if they disagree with us and what their responses are. But I think that's what's actually going on, is that when we look at the dress analogy, it's kind of this, where people are looking at this as two radically different ways and frames of reference. And the person who's more marriage minded, discretion is the guardrail that keeps them from going too far. Like you said, like if personal truth and personal feelings is all that's needed in order for you to be allowed to say anything, where's the discretion?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the protection? Right? So if she wasn't satisfied sexually with her partner, and she says that on a podcast, or any woman says that publicly particularly publicly on a podcast of this platform, something like this, if it's her truth, if it's how she really feels, who could criticize her based off of that mindset of everybody who's pushing this stuff? Where's the line?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you drawing arbitrary lines based off of just how you personally feel?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a general standard of what it is that how we should move, or or what we should or shouldn't say in certain spaces? So one of the issues that I noted, and it's kind of alluding to what you mentioned about this struggle with the breakdown of if one side is saying where's the discretion and the other side is saying discretion not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. My lens is, if you get with a man or woman that understands that everything that's happening in your relationship that's not positive, everybody doesn't have to know. That's one thing. But what I think is happening is the people that are on the left, or the people who are on the side of validate, listen, be heard no matter what, I wonder if I wonder how many of them will be comfortable if something similar was happening on the other end. My lens is that many of the people, especially the ladies, that are constantly jumping and coming to bat with and always defending a lot of these women celebrities and influencers who are saying and doing all of these acts and moves, when a man was to say something similar or comparable for the same exact reasons, something tells me that they would have totally different reactions and standards.
Mm-hmm.
If LeBron James, because he's not as happy, because he's feeling lonely, because of all these different reasons or justifications that he may personally have, if he was to say out loud that he wishes that he would have gotten more female attention, not because he was going to act on it, but just because it would be nice to feel it again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know almost any woman on the planet that's going to say that that's good. That's his truth and he's allowed to say it. And how many of the women that's saying it's fine in this context would be telling Savannah to take all she could from him and go where she's respected? What I'm realizing is this whole support, and this is what I'm about to describe this as, I think it's idolatry. Idolatry, for those who aren't as familiar with theological terms, is where you place something to the highest ideal, you give it a level of status where it can't be critiqued, it can't be scrutinized, it can't be challenged, and it's to be held up above anything and everything else. If a woman's feelings, if a woman's personal truth and her right to share it and say it is the highest ideal in a relationship, that is a form of idolatry. As an example, as a married man, my wife's happiness is not the most important thing to me. But guess what? neither is my happiness as well. Her happiness and my happiness are very important things. The ability for what I do, how I show up, how I continue doing things, can the number one ideal to keep me doing that can't be based on happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be based on my personal feelings. Can't be. People who don't believe that there should be any guardrails to what it is that they say, how they say it, because the number one most important ideal is just being allowed to say it no matter what. What if all the people that disagree with you all, it's just about the line of where we're drawing, of when it is that it becomes appropriate versus inappropriate?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of almost, I mean, let me take that back. There's definitely people on the internet that's like, she just needs to shut up. She just needs to be grateful. He's rich. She should just be appreciative. She has something. Feelings are feelings. Emotions are emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard very similar things before in counseling sessions. So this isn't necessarily unusual. The difference was that it was in a counseling session.
Mm-hmm.
People who are more marriage minded, it's not that they don't believe the truth needs to be shared or feelings don't need to be validated or acknowledged. They're recognizing, well, 600,000 people, probably not the best move. Therapist, great option. Mentor, great option. Close family member or friend, potentially good option. Anybody and everybody that wants to hear it, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. So that spectrum, that's just what I was initially kind of, thinking about. And I think that's actually what's going on. You have any more feedback about that?
I think you're covering it really comprehensively. I think that just emphasize the concept of or practice of idolatry and what that means, prioritizing feelings above all things, above all else, above like even the truth or like reality itself. So I definitely can see how that has been that's been prevalent. I mean, whenever we started the whole my truth thing, I knew it was going down. That things started to get kind of weird. Okay, things started to get weird because y'all know it wasn't always like this. Things were not always like this the way it is right now. So I don't know what about year that was when that started to happen. I remember doing a podcast episode about my truth a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been I've thought of it like a philosophical stance that someone has. Essentially, like someone either, and I'm not too much of like a binary person, meaning like an either or person. But when it comes to like philosophical stances, there is this. It is sort of like someone either thinks this way or they don't. Someone's either, you kind of look at it like we kind of have my truth people or people who are kind of like really adverse to that. And when those two people meet, it's like a powder keg. It's like these two people do not get along. Like I don't know how you said the single-minded and the marriage-minded. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there are related dichotomies to that. Like the single-minded and the marriage-minded is also the my truth and the truth people.
Yes.
And it's also the objective versus the subjective. It's also like, so there are these related like philosophical stances that show up in people that tend to be a certain way. You said left recently. Okay. You said the people on the left, and I thought, because it even shows up politically. Yeah. So there are these splits, and we're only becoming like more and more polarized in these splits. And so when these two people, let's just keep it on the my truth versus the truth people. In other words, like the objective and the subjective people. When these two people try to have conversation, it's like it almost seems impossible because we're viewing the world through very different lenses. And so what we think is reasonable, and again, this whole us versus them thing, I mean, it seems so polarized, right? Like they think is unreasonable. And so it's really difficult to come to resolve when you have these really polarized, these really different philosophical ways of looking at the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I that's it. I'm glad you actually added to that about the objective truth versus subjective truth, where it's like subjective truth people, how a person feels is seen as the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
That's seen as the highest ideal, right? And that's the thing that needs to be validated. Whereas this, as an example, like if anybody that's in any relationship isn't happy 24/7, there's times where they dislike their partner, they dislike their husband, they dislike their girlfriend, they dislike their wife, right? And then there's times when they hate them. I'm so tired of him. I'm so tired of her. And what I've noted is those feelings may be legitimate. There may be a legitimate reason for why you feel that way. The difference between the both camps is one party will say that's a valid feeling and you're allowed to express it. The other party would say, let's say those to the right would say, that's a valid opinion. You have a right to express it, but there's a time and a place and with whom it is that you should be expressing it with.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. One side, one camp, when we're looking at the dress or the Aisha Curry dress, they're seeing it as a whole different color. Potentially both camps could say she's allowed to feel anything. She's allowed, that's what's true for her. She's even allowed to express it. The difference is what's the guardrails for when it is that you should be allowed to say it versus not. One of the key things that I noted is when this isn't checked, when this isn't addressed, what ends up happening is you'll be put in situations because of the lack of guardrails and the lack of understanding about what to say and what not to say. If Aisha Curry thought more like you or me, she mentioned that she had a therapist. She mentioned that she was saying it to her husband. I'm sure that it was the way she talks. I'm sure her family and friends probably knew, but none of us would be talking about it, having the conversation. And Steph wouldn't be in a position to where he would have to challenge or confront or check Killer Mike, another rapper man. And the point is if you had checked this sooner, you wouldn't have to check another man.